Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Peace, mercy, and blessings of God be upon you. This is a new presentation from www.central-mosque.com and the Humble Heart YouTube channel. Today we're going to talk about why did Iran attack Israel a few days ago. Before we begin, we need to look into whenever it comes to the Muslim world, Shia Sunni divide, Arab non Arab divide, we get all of these issues. So we need to step aside and actually look at the facts as to what's going on. We also need to be aware of our own biases, which are used by multiple factors. There is, in Israel in the 80s, there was an article published, and it's very well known, called the Yinon Plan, and they talked about how to foster disunity amongst the Muslim world. So what they were talking about is, Israel was talking about directly financing Sunni and Shia factions within Islam. So basically pit the Muslims, against each other. Over the past few years, you've seen examples of that. The war in Yemen, the Saudi war in Yemen. There were incidences, and I've done videos in the past where the Saudi government bombed, a school bus, and children died. Children died. Most of the times when you went for Jummah prayer, if something happened in Kashmir or something happened in Palestine, it is raised by the imams and they request du'as, etc., and rightly so. However, when those children were killed in Yemen due to Saudi bombing, these were children. They were going to school. No, not, I wouldn't say no, but many of the imams and many of the mosques, which I am a Sunni, from the information that I gathered, didn't even raise the point. Why? Because the perpetrator was Saudi Arabia. So we need to step out of this situation wherever innocent, non-combatant civilians, men, women, children, older people, people of religion, get harmed. We as Muslims should look at this issue and stand with this issue, regardless of whether it is Sunni children who are dying or Shia children who are dying, and it does not matter if it's due to a Muslim atrocity or to a non-Muslim atrocity. So when Pakistan bombed the places in Afghanistan, little children in Afghanistan died, and damn on Pakistan for doing that, right? Simple as that. We should not be looking at these issues, but I want you to be aware of these patterns. They are forces at work that make you think in a particular manner, right? So in this incident, before we even talk about the Iranian retaliatory strike on Israel, the reason they did that is because Israel bombed a consulate in Damascus, which is blatant and absolute violation of international norms, regulations, United Nations, processes, etc. You cannot bomb the consulate of another nation in a third country. That is just ridiculous. It does not matter if the people who were killed were Shia or Sunni or not even Muslim. It does not matter. It is against international norms. That has to be established. Point number one. And that should be condemned. And many Muslim nations did not do that, did not directly condemn this Israeli involvement. And by the way, Israel hasn't owned up to this fact, whether they bombed it or not, but the U.S. State Department has. And that's been quoted in Washington Post, New York Times, etc. The U.S. Department has pretty much owned up that Israel did that in Damascus to an Iranian embassy. So that's number one. So the Iranian strike should be called a retaliatory strike to the actions of Israel in a foreign country. Point number one. Point number two, the people who are I am a Sunni and I have fundamental disagreement with the Shia doctrine. The people who are Shia, okay, they seem to be supporting Iran. Now, the atrocity, the barbarity, the monsterism that Israel is demonstrating in Gaza for the Palestinian Muslims has been going on since October, right? And the Iranians did not retaliate. The Iranians did not do anything. Also, Israel has actually struck Iran inside Iran. They have committed assassinations of Iranian scientists, etc., inside Iran, and Iran never reacted. So let's put both the Shia Sunni hyperbole and overreaction on the side. We're going to look at this issue in the facts of its own light. So, as I said, basically this is something I printed from Washington Post. Pentagon and in America, the State Department actually issued a statement that they think Iran is behind the strikes in Damascus on Iranian consulate. So let's be clear about that. Now, when that strike happened, there was no surprise. Iran said they vowed to retaliate, they had to retaliate, and they did retaliate because they had to save face on this issue. Regardless of the casualties were, it doesn't matter. Now, the people who were protecting Israel from an Iranian strike, which was coming, everybody knew it was coming, Iran vowed it was coming, was not just Israel. So within Israel, and I've seen many YouTube videos and stuff, and people are ridiculous and they're talking about this Iron Dome. The Iron Dome is actually to prevent rocket attacks. Okay? In order to counter missiles, Israel has the missile system Arrow 2, Arrow 3. This is a battery of Arrow 3, which shoots down ballistic missiles. The US had 10 ships in the Mediterranean, gaining intelligence, reporting, so the Arrow 3 can shoot it down. United Kingdom had its aircrafts in the sky, and Jordanian F-16s were also in the sky protecting Israel. So it was literally US, UK, Israel, Jordan, and maybe other allies that we have not even heard of. So all of these people together were ready and knew that this attack was coming. Now, the kinetic response. Let's just talk about the military perspective of the kinetic response. So, as I said, this was not a surprise, and I'm going to talk about it. Why? Because this is where conspiracies come in and people, think, hey, what's going on? So, Iran announced its intention beforehand that it's going to attack. Then Iran told the allies and the United States that we're going to attack in the next 72 hours. They have said that. It's their statement. So, the allies knew, US knew, and if they knew, then of course Israel knew. Then they sent a whole bunch of hundreds of these older Shahed, propeller-driven drones, which take a flight of 5 to 6 hours from Iran to Israel. So they had 5 to 6 hours to know, hey, an attack is coming. So they knew about the information, they knew about the drone. Then Iran fired subsonic older missiles towards Israel. So once again, being tracked in the Mediterranean by the Americans, Jordanian Air Force, American Air Force, British Air Force, before this stuff even gets to Israel, they are well prepared. So they can move their vulnerable assets, they can make preparations, they can do whatever they want. So plenty of notice. Okay? Still, Iranian kinetic response hit the Nevatim Air Base in Israel, which houses the most modern American F-15s. It housed the Ramon Air Base, which houses the latest F-16Vs, and on Mount Hermon, the Mossad station. They were still able to breach after all of these allies and everything put together. Iran breached them. Now, this is where the conspiracy come in. A lot of people, particularly I've seen, Muslims, Sunni Muslims, Arab Muslims, because the Arab nations are not doing anything, right? And there's a huge pressure based on what Iran did. Be it, a symbolic, be it didn't do anything, doesn't matter. The Arab nations and the Arab populations are questioning that if Iran can do something, why can't we? So there is concerted propaganda to say, hey, if they wanted to hurt Israel, why did they announce their intention? Why did they attend the allies? Why did they send these older drones which take 6 hours? Why did they send the older missiles and not the latest on the fleet, etc.? And they're saying, hey, here's the conspiracy. Iran is in America's pocket. Iran is in Israel's pocket. I have no idea whether they're in America's pocket or in Iran's pocket, but they did that on purpose. So if you look in 2019, the India and Pakistan confrontation, when Pakistan did the retaliatory strikes in India, they had the video footage of the Indian Army Brigade headquarters, and they deliberately dropped their payloads 1,000 yards away. Why? This was because when you go in and you want to be able to prove that you have the ability and demonstrate the ability to strike back without breaching the Rubicon. So if you breach the Rubicon and you kill so many people and you do a lot of damage, then the other party has the chance to retaliate and say, hey, we are now going to do revenge. Everybody, the whole thing loses. So what Iran achieved in this is they demonstrated that they're able to strike 1,300 kilometers away. Okay, and they clearly penetrated Israel's multi-layered defense and hit targets. Okay, using older tech. They have demonstrated that, and I'm going to tell you why that's important. As I understand right now from publicly available information, it's cost Iran over $1 billion just for this. Okay, and it's unsustainable. So Iran sent a whole bunch of older propeller-driven drones and older missiles and stuff. So it cost them money. So it's cost Israel over $1 billion to fight this. Now, they have also gained intel on Israeli defense response times, their batteries, where they're positioned, etc. But the reason they did all of this is they did not want to breach the threshold, and they did not want to escalate. The message that's gone very clearly to Americans, to Israelis, to everybody in military intelligence is say, hey, stop. Okay, this cannot be sustained. The security of Israel is no longer, supreme. Their defenses have been breached, okay, and they've been humiliated. That's all the message from Iran's point of view. They wanted to say, hey, we can strike you. That's it. And the Americans realize also, by the way, one more little thing I want to point out is the U.S. has realized that this is unsustainable. If anything happens, the biggest target that Iran has is the Straits of Hormuz right here, where a vast chunk of the world's oil flows through. So they can shut it down, right, and bring world trade to a halt. And they can do that. It's right in their backyard. So the Americans and the West and NATO and the Europeans have told Israel, back down. However, Israel has no choice. Okay. The reason Netanyahu did that is they wanted to distract people's attention away from the atrocities and the genocide they're committing in Gaza. Okay, so they wanted to distract attention, and they also want to play the victim card. So, of course, if you look at the U.S. Parliament, if you look at the U.S. Congress, you look at in many places in Europe, in United Kingdom, etc., they're saying, we have the right to support Israel in their defense. So nobody realized that, hey, Israel struck another country's consulate, and this was a retaliation strike. So Israel knows that basically, hey, they have not achieved any objectives in Gaza. They have actually withdrawn their forces. The hostage problem hasn't been solved. The war isn't going well. Netanyahu knows that. People are getting impatient. There's opposition against Netanyahu and his government in Israel. So Netanyahu did this to distract, right? And he has no choice but to go all in. However, the United States, Europe, NATO, and everyone reasonable, right, does not want Israel to do that. So, but Israel is already vowed that they are going to respond. So we just have to wait what that response is going to be. Okay? Israeli military, Israeli offensive capabilities, particularly the Air Force, is vastly superior to Iran. Okay, there's no way Iran can breach multiple countries' airspace and go strike in Iran, but Israel has the capability to do that. One important variable here is Turkey said that they will not let Israel use their airspace. So that kind of tells you that in the past, maybe when Israel did attack Iran, there's a possibility that Turkish airspace was used. So there added complexity for Netanyahu's own survival. Right? He has no choice but to escalate and go on the escalation ladder, go higher up on the escalation ladder. We don't know what's going to happen. Perhaps, so United States has publicly said that they will not back an Israeli attack on Iran, right? So Iran has demonstrated their capability using older tech, and they were still able to breach and hit one of the most sophisticated, one of the air bases housing the most sophisticated jets in the Israeli Air Force. So we wait and see what happens. For the pattern Netanyahu has shown, by the way, so basically they want to burn the whole world. They don't really care. And some people say if Netanyahu goes, Netanyahu can be forced out. There isn't anybody in Israel. It doesn't matter who comes in the government, who comes in power. Their atrocities, their genocides of the Palestinians continue. So we ask Allah Ta'ala to bring safety and security to this region. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to help our Palestinian Muslim brothers and sisters. But from Israel's point of view, and for Netanyahu's own political survival, there's a chance that he is not going to stop here. He's going to continue doing what he's been doing. Jazakallah khair. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.